Pro wrestling can be a very interesting place, and you will often sometimes see things that make you kind of just gasp, and things that you didn't think you'd ever see, things that you question why you're seeing them, and things that you probably never want to see again. And that brings us to All Elite Wrestling's November pay per view, Full Gear. Now, Full Gear, I attended the first one in Baltimore, Maryland back in 2019, and it used to be the last pay-per-view of the year for All Elite Wrestling. Of course, this year that has changed because World's End in Long Island, New York will be happening in late December. But now we kind of see where things are going after a lot of shenanigans, a lot of blood, a lot of ball shots, and, well, general craziness. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys that YouTube likes its algorithm. It likes it when you hit the like button. It likes when you do all that kind of stuff. They call it engagement. So if you can engage with the video, if you're enjoying it and want to help out the channel a little bit, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe button, and that notification bell. It helps other wrestling fans know that we cover All Elite Wrestling here on the channel. I appreciate it very much. But let's talk about Full Gear 2023. Opened up with the pre-show, which we had a couple of pretty good matches. In fact, one that's gotten a little bit less fanfare because of all the other crazy stuff that happened on the actual show. But Claudio Castagnoli and Buddy Matthews had a pretty damn good match on the pre-show. But the real thing on the pre-show that everybody was talking about is the fact that, yes, Maxwell Jacob Friedman still defending the Ring of Honor tag team titles because Adam Cole is injured, had to get a secondary partner, and he did finally call upon the help of Samoa Joe. Of course, the consequence of this is if he did this, Samoa Joe would get a future championship match, and given what happened at the Grand Slam event, MJF don't want to see no more of Samoa Joe, but he has no choice here. Joe joined MJF to defend the Ring of Honor tag titles against the Guns, who were part of Bullet Club Gold. And this match wasn't so much about the match, but so much about the interaction between Joe and MJF, who had a couple of moments of not getting along and had some moments of getting along. They eventually did retain the championships, and Joe did remind Max, he's like, well, I'm coming for the title. But after that happened, the Guns went and attacked MJF, no help from Joe here, and they basically ruined MJF's left leg. Now, the funny thing about this is earlier in the day, MJF was on that chiropractor's YouTube channel. You may have seen Kenny Omega was on one, and a couple other wrestlers have been on there where he's basically kind of fixed their broken bodies through massage and various other techniques. And MJF in that video talked about how his left leg I think he had 2 tears and a break or something like that. That left leg had been bothering him for a number of years. And he'd even got it injured when he was a young man playing football. So it's always been a thing, an Achilles heel for him in some ways. And that came across in this post-match as the Guns used the chair and did the old Pillman routine on MJF's left leg on a steel chair. This winds up with MJF having to go to the hospital, and he's screaming at Adam Cole, who was in attendance here on crutches, to, hey, don't let him take my championship, because if MJF couldn't compete, he'd have to forfeit the match and forfeit the AEW World Championship to Switchblade Jay White. But then we started the show proper. We opened up with a fantastic choir rendition, the Children's Choir of Cage, as they sang an a cappella Christian Cage's theme song. Christian, Nick Wayne, and Luchasaurus come to the ring to take on a painted up Adam Copeland, Sting, and Darby Allin, who had matching gear, matching face paint. Adam Copeland got to run to the left side of the stage because there were 13,000 plus people at this show, so he got to do his full entrance. They got into the ring. This match was a lot of fun. There was a lot of teasing by Christian running away from Edge. Darby Allin and Nick Wayne, of course, have amazing chemistry. Those guys have been wrestling against each other in garages and wherever else for years, so their stuff was pretty good. Ric Flair was also part of this match. He was the second for the team of Darby, Sting, and Adam Copeland. He got into it with Christian a little bit, got a nut shot of his own, which I thought Flair was going to be the one giving a nut shot, but Christian beat him to the punch, literally. At the end of this, though, Christian ran away when he found out that Adam Copeland was not playing around with him. This left Luchasaurus and Nick Wayne on their own, 3-on-2, really 4-on-2 if you count Flair, kinda, and Edge, Adam Copeland, and Darby Allin win the match. This was Sting, who has always been billed from Venice Beach, California, is a California native, his probably last big match in California. So he had a moment at the end of the match where they left him in the ring alone, and he got to say thank you to all the crowd that was cheering their heads off, as the legend is now on his retirement tour. There are a bunch of other matches on the night. Of course, we had a AEW Women's Championship match. We in fact crowned a couple of new champions tonight as the challenger, Timeless Toni Storm.
She belongs to the streets.
Yes, Timeless Toni Storm. She came out to challenge for the AEW Women's Championship against Hikaru Shida, the defending champion. And this match, the match wasn't about the moves in the match. It's really about whether or not Toni Storm was going to win the championship. There was a lot of shenanigans in this. Toni Storm at one time gets the world's worst butt implant and puts a plate that her butler, Luther, had brought to the ring. Has a bit of trouble getting it behind her booty cheek, because there's a lot of cheek there with Toni Storm, but she got it to sit there at the right spot and did her, I think she calls it the sweet cheek music or whatever, in the corner with the metal plate right behind her butt cheek, right into Shida's face. Toni Storm. I said this to my friends while we were watching the show, that Toni Storm and Juice Robinson must have the most colorful home life of any couple I know in wrestling today. But Toni Storm is your new AEW Women's Champion. Her new protege, stalker Mariah May, gave her roses at the end of the match, and it was good. And one of the things that we didn't notice is that there was a lot of time post-match, which usually meant you thought something was going to happen, but in fact, most of the time, nothing really did happen post-match and a lot of stuff on the main show. And that's because we noticed that instead of having 15 matches on this pay-per-view, there were really, I think, 8. And I think that is a better fit. And again, this is AEW addressing some criticisms fans have had, so they reduced the number of matches on this card, and I think that was a good idea. This show felt a lot better pace-wise than some of the previous shows. We then get into the absolutely insane ladder match, 4-way for the Tag Team Championships. You got Ricky Starks and Big Bill, who are the defending champions, defending against what do they call them? The Rush's faction. Not Los Ingobernables de Japón, but the Los Ingobernables or Ingobernables, the La Facción de Ingobernables, that's what it is, La Facción de Ingobernables. They were challenging along with FTR, former multi-time tag champions, and the House of Blacks, Brody King and Malachi Black. Now, we started off, everybody knew the big hoss fight, the big meat battle between Brody King and Big Bill, but that got diverted for a little bit, and then everybody else decided they were just going to try to kill each other with ladders, setting up ladders, dropping each other on ladders, jumping off the top rope, suplexing Ricky Starks on the people. Ricky Starks, however, played the smartest role in this match, because at one point, pretty much everybody else was obliterating each other with ladders, and you were like, well, where's Ricky Starks? And he pops up out of nowhere, and, a lot fresher and a lot less damage than everybody else in the match. We did eventually get the big hoss meat battle with the crowd chanting along meat to every hit, which was absolutely fantastic. In the end, it was Ricky Starks and Big Bill retaining the AEW Tag Team Championships. Pretty good damn ladder match. I definitely would go in and see it if I was you. The TBS Championship was on the line as Kris Statlander was defending in a 3-way match against Skye Blue and Julia Hart, and with a match that I termed the Battle of the Goth Girls, because there's a lot of goth in this match, even for Kris Statlander, even though she's not quite goth, but she's got a little weirdness to her. This match was probably my least favorite on the night. It was a lot of fun, and I did enjoy the finish of the match. Again, much like the Toni Storm match, this was really about the finish. Julia Hart does get the TBS Championship, well deserved for her. Her character work this year has been really good. She's one of the biggest bright spots. Her and Toni Storm, one of the biggest bright spots in the AEW Women's division. And I think it's only proper that both of them wound up winning both women's championships on this night. Still don't know where the story with her and Skye Blue and Kris Statlander and even Willow Nightingale is involved with that, where all of that is going, but that's something to be filled in later down the road. Let's talk about two of the biggest things that happened on the show, and I think the two big moments and the big events that happened for me personally on the show. Number one, Tony Schiavone comes to the ring and announces that, yes, we all know there was a big signing by AEW. I thought it might be Mercedes Moné. I actually went on Twitter and saw a bunch of people talk about it being Will Ospreay, and I'm like, how can it be Will Ospreay? He's still under contract with New Japan until the end of January, early February. No. In fact, no, it was Will Ospreay, which shocked the crap out of me that he came to the ring, and then he came into the ring and announced he was signing, and I was like, how can he do this? And he did explain, well, wait a minute, I do have to finish off with New Japan, and I have a lot of feelings about that. There's another video on my channel. If you go check it out right now, it'll be linked either down in the description box below, or you can just go to my channel and check it out, or on my Patreon page and check out what that video was, where I kind of go into depth about this partnership between AEW and New Japan. Seems a little one-sided, a little lopsided, maybe I should say. Will Ospreay did admit that, yes, he was signing with AEW, even though he's got 2.5 months left with New Japan, and they just announced in New Japan, because of an angle they shot 2 weeks ago, that he's in this big high-profile match to christen a new championship in New Japan Pro Wrestling to replace the old famed IC championship. And it's a triple threat match with Jon Moxley and David Finlay, and don't know what's going on with that. Ospreay is still currently technically the US UK champion in New Japan, the second highest ranked championship there. And on top of that, he is the leader of the United Empire. None of those storylines are being resolved so far. We're going to have to see what happens over in New Japan. I thought it was a little weird, but again, I'm not going to get into too much detail with it. If you want to see me talk about that and you want to hear what my thoughts on this whole thing, and thoughts of a lot of fans of New Japan from both the West and the East, because we're the only ones who seem to have an issue with this, somewhat of an issue with it, not too much, but check out that video in the description box below. But after that, I will now talk about the match that everybody is going to be talking about for quite some time. Swerve Strickland, Hangman Adam Page in the Texas Death Match. What in the hell can you say? I would usually say, I would suggest, this is definitely a match of the year contender. It might wind up winning match of the year on a lot of people's polls. But this was probably the grossest, most brutal match I have probably ever seen. And I have seen quite a few of them. I have watched a lot of ECW. I have seen CZW. I have seen Jun Kasai use razor blades and put skewers in his head. I have seen Mick Foley fall off of ladders and have teeth and crap coming out of his face. I've seen New Jag almost kill people in the ring. I have never seen anything that really actually, and it has been very rare in wrestling where something has actually made me turn my stomach. But at one point in this match, you know the spot I'm talking about, Hangman Adam Page gets a stapler, and he starts stapling Swerve's chest. He staples his face. He takes the kid's picture, which is a little bit of storytelling. The picture that Swerve Strickland made fun of in Adam Page's house when he did that home invasion angle a couple weeks ago, took the picture and stapled it to Swerve's cheek. Then Swerve bleeding. Swerve is pretty high on the Muda scale for the blood loss in this match. And at one point, Hangman Page lies down on the mat, grabs Swerve's head, and holds it over top of him. So the gushing blood coming out of Swerve Strickland's head goes into his mouth. Literally, Adam Page became Vlad the Impaler in this match in more ways than one. Then he went and spit it out like he was a macabre Triple H. And that's just like one of a bunch of outrageous stuff that happened in this match. Adam Page gets power driven on the barricade. By the way, I did notice that AEW is now starting incorporating LED barricades and an LED ring apron. So yeah, we're more and more towards the WWE aesthetic there, but whatever. But this splits Adam Page's head open on the top of his head. So now he's gushing blood. These are not blade jobs. This is blood going everywhere. And cinder blocks. And we even got Prince Nana trying to dance his way out of getting his butt kicked. Didn't work. Hangman Page gave him the dead eye through a table. Swerve Strickland brings out some glass. And when he brought out the bag, I was like, I got flashbacks of Lucha Underground when he was kill shot. And I was like, this is probably glass. And it was broken glass. He does a 450 splash on the Hangman Page on the broken glass. Again, I cringed. In fact, I can't do this match justice. You have to go watch this. Now, warning, this is not for the squeamish. And this goes to something that I usually say about All Elite Wrestling and pro wrestling in general. Some people are not going to like this. Some people are going to love this, whatever. I keep saying this all the time. Wrestling is an entertainment genre like a lot of different entertainment genres. You're not going to get horror in WWE. It's more of a mainstream, squeaky clean Disney kind of thing. Whereas AEW is a little bit more like A24, a little bit more like Lionsgate, where you're going to get some kind of really disturbing stuff in those movies, and the same thing goes with AEW in this match. This match was not for the weak at heart. We say that a lot in wrestling. The announcers say that a lot, but it truly wasn't. Swerve Strickland amazingly gets the win in this match after he basically hangs Hangman Page with a chain over the ring post outside the ring. It was a great camera shot, by the way. Hangman basically falls unconscious, cannot answer the 10 count, and Swerve Strickland goes up 2-0. And again, one of the grossest, most violent, brutal matches I've ever seen. So much so that people were joking online that Jon Moxley is begging Tony Khan while it's going on, and I want to be in this thing. Speaking of Moxley, he did challenge Orange Cassidy for the International Championship on the show. Orange Cassidy did manage to weather the storm of Jon Moxley, was beating the crap out of him for the first part of this match. Orange made his comeback, hit the orange punch. They hit about 80 orange punches, I think. Finally got Moxley down. Moxley, of course, bled because he already had a cut in his head and he had a bandage on. So, of course, he bled in this match. But Orange managed to win, and now he has pretty much beaten all 3 of the 4 members of the Blackpool Combat Club. So I guess Danielson maybe in the future might be an opponent. I don't know. But Orange Cassidy wins over Claudio, Wheeler Yuta, and now Jon Moxley. And we're still hinting at a Hook Wheeler Yuta match. I'm not sure why that wasn't on the pre-show, but I guess it's something that might do on Dynamite or something. They're building up to it in a very slow way. I'm not sure where it's going, but Hook and Wheeler Yuta, you can expect to see that pretty soon. We also had the Golden Jets, which I finally figured out why they're called the Golden Jets, because of a hockey player that in Winnipeg that was known as the Jets, and Jericho and Kenny Omega are from Winnipeg. So it was Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega against the Young Bucks. And this is probably the 3rd or 4th or 5th time that I've seen Kenny Omega team with somebody against the Young Bucks. I've seen him team with Kota Ibushi as the Golden Lovers at the Walter Pyramid years ago against the Young Bucks. Obviously him and Hangman Page against the Young Bucks, and that great match from Revolution back in 2020, right before the pandemic hit. And now with Jericho, and Kenny Omega has an amazing, immaculate win-loss record. I think he's undefeated when he takes on the Bucks, and that streak carried on into this match. The Bucks did everything they could. Don Callis was at ringside. The Bucks were playing up their heel side a lot, which I tend to like the Young Bucks a lot more when they're playing heel. They're a lot better at that. It didn't really work. They even hit the one-wing angel on Kenny Omega, who did kick out of his own move. So, yeah, yet again, there's another person who kicked out of the one-wing angel. But no, it was Kenny doing the one-wing angel officially at the end of the match that got the win for the Golden Jets, which means now that Kenny and Jericho have now taken the title shot that the Young Bucks had, and are now also going to continue to go on to be a tag team. Even though things got chippy in the match, Omega tried to, show good sportsmanship and wanted to shake hands. The Bucks wanted nothing to do with it. They started throwing a temper tantrum outside the ring. So the interesting thing I found out about this is a couple things. Don Callis, I'm wondering if he's going to try to recruit the Young Bucks into the Don Callis family now. That would be actually kind of interesting. And the Bucks, who have needed some sort of direction, some sort of angle in their, because they haven't really had much of an angle for a while in AEW. They've got an angle now that's kind of feeding into some of the perceptions, and they're just kind of leaning in to a lot of the criticisms fans give them about being crybabies, and they really are leaning into that. And it's always with wrestling, it's like, if fans think you're something, then just go full on. Don't steer away from it, steer into it. And that looks like the Bucks are going to steer into the perception of them as whining, crying babies. They've even mentioned this on TV. A couple of the notes on the show. Eddie Kingston announced that he was going to be in the Continental Classic, which is essentially, again, AEW's G1 Climax tournament, or their version of it. We also found out that Andrade El Idolo, over the weekend, he's going to be in the tournament, as well as Mark Briscoe, who's going to be in the tournament. But that was a surprising entrant, and I'm not mad about it. But Eddie Kingston said that he was going to defend his NJPW Strong Openweight Championship and the Ring of Honor Championship at the tournament. So it was kind of confusing. Just not to confuse you guys if you didn't really get this, what essentially is going to happen, and Tony Khan did clear this up in the post-media scrum, Eddie Kingston's New Japan Strong Openweight Championship and the Ring of Honor World Championship are going to be kind of merged with this new AEW Continental Championship as a triple crown. So it is going to be a championship that's going to represent New Japan, Ring of Honor, and AEW. The winner of the Continental Classic will have all 3 of those belts as the Triple Crown champion. This is very similar, and Tony Khan did say this, to things that have happened in All Japan Wrestling. If you remember, there's been several Triple Crown champions in other wrestling outside of WWE for many years. So that's kind of the idea now, is that the person who wins the Continental Classic, at least for this year, will be that champion. So Eddie has basically put all of his 2 championships on the line. 2 championships he worked very hard to get, a Ring of Honor title and an NJPW New Japan title, and he's going to put them on the line, and they will be merged with the Continental Championship to make the new Triple Crown champion. The end of this show, though, with all the chicanery, earlier in the night, they were going to relinquish the championship. MJF was going to be stripped, and it was going to be given to Jay White, but Adam Cole came out and said on crutches that he would take MJF's place. It's very interesting, the loose rules in AEW that anybody can just swap themselves in as champion to defend a championship, but I guess that's what we're going with. Now, there are several plot holes pointed out in this. One of the ones that struck out to me immediately was Adam Cole was not cleared to wrestle, so how can he take MJF's spot in this match? Okay, whatever, go with it. It's the story they're trying to tell. Of course, the match happens. Adam Cole comes hobbling out to the ring. Jay White's coming in there. Jay White is just grinning like a Cheshire cat because he knows, man, it doesn't matter if it's Adam Cole or MJF. I'm fighting a one-legged guy. I got this damn championship, right? And yes, there were a lot of shenanigans in this match. MJF, right before the match is announced, he comes back. He's basically broken the law and stolen an ambulance, but we've seen this in wrestling 1,000 times before. In the old days, in the Attitude Era, this felt very Attitude Era the way they did this. MJF comes back to the ring. All the officials are trying to keep him from going in there. His leg is pretty messed up, but he goes and gets Adam out of there. He's going to fight Jay White, and this match goes on way longer. I think this match could have been 10 minutes, and I would have been 10 minutes shorter, and I would have been fine with it. The storyline, you got the storyline across. MJF is a one-legged man fighting against Jay White, who is notorious internationally for being a clever snake that will find a way to get what he wants and get a championship if he wants it. And he has orchestrated for the last month and a half this whole scenario to just chip away at MJF. And this is when the master plan finally comes to fruition, and Jay White can beat a one-legged MJF, but it's not that easy. And despite the fact that Adam Cole screwed up trying to help MJF a couple of times, despite the fact that Jay White, the one time I thought Jay White might win the match was when he had MJF in the figure 4 leg lock, and Adam Cole had the towel and was about to throw in the towel. And I'm like, oh my God. And everybody's talking about, you remember Full Gear back in the first Full Gear back in Baltimore in 2019 where MJF threw the towel in for Cody. Oh, there's a little tie back there, a long-term storytelling callback right there. And I thought at the moment, I was like, well, World's End is in Long Island, so I could see Jay White winning the title here and then them having a rematch at World's End and MJF win the title back at World's End in his hometown. But that wasn't the case. MJF did not tap, and Adam Cole did not throw in the towel. Bryce Rensburg got knocked out, of course, which is surprisingly enough was the first ref bump of the whole night. We went a whole night without a lot of ref bumps. MJF makes his comeback. He goes to put Jay White on the announcer table, which the announcers had been beaten up pretty much most of the night because everybody basically was going after them. I guess that's why JR wasn't on commentary. He would not have been happy with all the shenanigans going around the broadcast table on this night. But the broadcast table just collapses because it's been beaten up most of the night, and it just is like, no, not again. And it just like, nope, I give up. It just collapsed underneath Jay White. MJF's like, screw it, I'm going to go up anyway. So MJF goes up to the top rope and drops an elbow from the top rope onto the floor, which was a bad. Ask Mick Foley, and Mick Foley only did those from the ring apron and screwed up his hips for the rest of his life. MJF did this off the top rope, and I'm sure now he realized, well, we can tell in his post-match that he realized that might not have been the best idea. But he drops the elbow on Jay White on the floor and gets Jay White in the ring. Some more shenanigans go on, but at the end, Jay White did fall to a one-legged MJF, and MJF retains the championship. No Devil, no Wardlow, no extra Samoa Joe. Juice Robinson was hurt, so he wasn't on this show. I'm sure he would have been played into this. He would have played into this some way or somehow if he had been there. But it was an okay main event match. Again, my personal taste, I would have liked it if it had gone 10 minutes shorter. They could have gone 10 minutes shorter. I would have been perfectly fine with it. But the end result was that MJF retains the championship. I would love to see a straight up rematch between these two, because Jay White, and I understand what a lot of people are saying about Jay White, that this makes him look totally weak, even though he's been undefeated since he came to AEW earlier in the year. I think the storyline is the way they set it up, with this being Jay White's first pinfall loss in AEW, with MJF having to do the hero's journey and come back and fight from the bottom and fight from a complete disadvantage. Jay White looking like his plan was working, this long orchestrated plan he had concocted was actually going to work, and now he just had to collect the championship. The intrigue about Adam Cole and whether or not Adam Cole was actually injured or not, because a lot of people didn't think Adam Cole was injured and maybe it was a work. And when he entered this match, we were like, okay, is he just going to take off the boot and start wrestling because he really wasn't that hurt? Well, it looks like he's still hurt. He actually legitimately is hurt, so that kind of clears that up. But there's a lot of stuff going on around MJF. A lot of fans were upset about it because they think it makes Jay White look weak, because he lost, even with all of the advantages he had, he lost to a one-legged MJF. I can see why people say that. I didn't get that impression from it. It depends on where they go after this with Jay White, whether or not he kind of disappears into the background or they throw him into a hot feud coming up this week on Dynamite and Collision. As for the booking in general to this match, a lot of people were saying it's overbooked. There's too many shenanigans. What is all this stuff? And I think what it is, along with them reducing the number of matches on this show, AEW does respond to fan criticism. And I think and we've heard it for the last month or two, that AEW doesn't do storytelling. They need to do more storytelling. I was about to do a video about storytelling and all the criticisms about people talking about AEW storytelling, which I don't really think are valid in some of the ways people are saying them. But yes, AEW, are they telling as good as stories as what WWE has been doing for the last year? No. The Bloodline stuff is still pretty good. The Judgment Day stuff in WWE is still, I would say, some of the best storytelling in wrestling as far as a narrative that's ongoing from show to show, week to week. AEW isn't doing that, but they don't necessarily have to do that. And my kind of thing is, what do we want here? They have straight up wrestling matches. People say, well, you need more than wrestling. You need storytelling. You need to tell me a story, daddy. Then they do a bunch of storytelling in the main event match all throughout the show, and fans are mad about that. Well, no, we want good storytelling. Well, what do you want from these guys? Look, I'm critical of AEW for a lot of different reasons, but this one, it seems like, you damned if you do, damned if you don't. Damned if you have some overly complicated story, damned if you don't have an overly complicated story, whatever it is. I do think that it was overcooked. But it was enough for me to stay interested in the match after a very long pay-per-view and seeing some crazy stuff already in the night, so I think it worked for that. Again, I would just say, for me personally, my only complaint was not so much that it was overbooked and overcooked and there was too much drama and shenanigans, is that it could have been just 10 minutes shorter, and it would have worked for me. But overall, I would suggest watching that match, the main event match. I do think the tag team ladder match was fantastic. Orange Cassidy and Mox was pretty good. The opening 6-man tag was good. And of course, again, remember, your mileage may vary with this. It depends on whether or not you got a strong stomach. But Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland, I definitely will watch it. It is absolutely in the top 3 main matches of the year for me right now, and probably for a lot of other people. So if you haven't seen the show, if you only want to see one match from the show, and you got a strong stomach, check out the Texas Death Match between Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page. Both of those guys in 2024 in AEW better be, I shouldn't say better be, but I have to think that they're going to do some big things in 2024. Touching a little bit on the post-media scrum, there was a better explanation about the whole thing about Will Ospreay and how he can sign with AEW while he's still under contract with New Japan. Apparently New Japan approved it, which still made a lot of New Japan fans kind of pissed off. He's going to finish up in New Japan at the New Beginning show, as I kind of expected, at the end of January, and then he'll be full-time in AEW following that. And Tony Khan did explain that the main reason he wanted to do this now, which is what I was asking, why do this now? Why not just wait so it doesn't kind of throw a shadow over the stuff he's doing in New Japan, because he's still got stuff he's doing in New Japan. The reason was that the Wembley show ticket sales are going on sale. and they wanted to have Will Ospreay announced there. Now, personally, and I'm just going to say this part again, you can watch the video when I get more into depth about what's going on with all this stuff on my channel, but even this, I understand the reason, but I personally, if it was me, and it's not me, but if it was me, out of respect for New Japan and the storyline, the fact that Ospreay still has some stuff he's doing in New Japan, I probably would have done this behind the scenes and just announced that Will Ospreay has thrown out a challenge to AEW for All In next year. So, I mean, because the point was to let the AEW fans know that Will Ospreay was going to be at All In next year at Wembley. You could have just said that he was throwing out a challenge. You didn't have to say that he was signed. And again, I know people who are just AEW fans who don't watch New Japan don't give a shit. But for those of us who do watch New Japan or watch New Japan and AEW, it's very clear that this kind of makes this New Japan look like the lesser company. And I don't know if that's what you really want to do in a partnership. I'll get into it in way more depth in another video on this channel. So again, hit the like button and notification bell so you know when that video is out. We also got an explanation about the injury for MJF and Adam Cole. So Adam Cole technically really is injured, or specifically really is injured. MJF's knee was hurting him pretty bad. He was crying like a baby for most of the post-match promo at the media scrum, and he was thanking everybody. And he said MJF is a completely different character now. He's very, very emotional and exposed these days, which is kind of fun. He is our scumbag, but his part in the press conference was pretty fun. We also heard from Julia Hart. We heard from Ricky Starks and Big Bill. We got some clarification from Tony Khan on the Continental Classic, where again, like I said, there will be a Triple Crown champion, whoever wins the tournament. And he also explained the point system, which is again, this whole tournament is similar to the G1 Climax, but he's also using some Fulcrum scoring systems there, where it is unlike the G1 where you get 2 points for a win. In the Continental Classic, you get 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, and 0 points for a loss. So that, with 6 guys in each league, in each bracket, in each block, there are some interesting point things that you could do there with ties and tiebreakers and putting people ahead, and how you can really work the numbers to make this tournament very exciting and engaging. Again, for those of us who are New Japan fans that watch AEW, we know what to expect from a tournament like this. But if you're an AEW fan that has never seen New Japan Pro Wrestling's G1 Climax tournament, which I suggest you do because they're amazing every single year, this is going to be a different thing for you. This is going to be a treat. This is going to be the sports side of sports entertainment. And if AEW does it the way I hope they do it, you're going to see the kind of sports drama, not the storytelling, but sports drama, sports-oriented drama of playoff sports in a American pro wrestling company, in a major league American pro wrestling company. Something that we only kind of get a glimpse of when the Royal Rumble gets down to the final 3 or 4 people. That's the only time in big time American wrestling that we've really had that kind of atmosphere. Now, if you know what I'm talking about, when we get to the final 3 or 4 in the Royal Rumble, imagine that stretched out across an entire tournament, especially in the finals and the semifinals and finals of this tournament. That's what you have to look forward to as far as the excitement of what's going to be coming up with this Continental Classic, which is why, again, a lot of us who have seen these round-robin tournaments over in the East in Japan know that this thing's going to be off the chain if AEW books it right. But I want to know what you guys thought of Full Gear 2023. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Did you think it was overbooked? Was the Hangman Page Swerve Strickland match your cup of tea, or was that too far for you and gross? Look, like I said, I had to close my eyes when there was the Vlad the Impaler moment. No, that was too much for me. But I want to know what you guys think. Let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Until next time, I'll see you guys here for more news, rumors, and reviews on the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling. Have a good day.